Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's New with Summon and 316 and Total Services. I'm Brent Cook. I'm the product manager for Summon, and I'm joined today by Amy Pemble, who is the director of product management for Total and 360 Services. We're going to cover a lot of material today. We'll take a little bit of time to talk about Summon, in particular, review some of the most recent accomplishments we've had and the most recently released features. We'll talk a little bit about what to expect in November. That release is coming up in just a few weeks. So I'll do a little bit of a deep dive there and talk about the features, as well as review some of the things that we're thinking about for 2023. Those are certainly in the early planning stages. And then Amy will take some time to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with 316 and Total Services. And as Scott mentioned before the webinar, we will be taking questions. So please feel free to submit any questions you have via the Q&A tool in WebEx. So let's take a moment to review some of the recent accomplishments with Summon. We did some improvements around the quick view pane, or the preview pane, as it was previously called. You can now view the quick look, which is an overlay on top of the results. Since we released this back in August, we've made some improvements to it. The quick look button was over the thumbnail and only appeared on hover. That is below now and persistent. You can also now browse through all of the results using the quick look. In the past, you were limited to the number that you had loaded before going into quick look. So for example, when you search on results, if you get 1,000, you display only the first 10, you would be only able to browse through that 1 through 10. We've adjusted that now to show total number of results at the top and the ability to browse through that entire section. Overall, we've gotten good feedback. We did usability testing around this, and it was basically a way to make it easier for you to see the detailed information that you have on all of those results. We've also been taking a look at the small screen layout and how we use that. We did some improvements on how both facets and the custom panels show up on smaller views, such as tablet or smartphone. Those can now be expanded or collapsed. As you can see here, the facets on the left and the custom panels on the right. And the previously custom panels was not supported on smaller screens, and we've added that in. We're also in the process of making other improvements based on the feedback you've given to us. So look forward to that in future releases. In August, I think this was the May release, we added the ability to add custom citation styles. You can use either the existing citation styles that we had previous to this feature being released, or you can opt to use the new selection of citation styles, which comes from the citation style library or the csl.org site. That's updated monthly, and you can go in there and add your own citation styles if you'd like, and then pull those into your instance of Summon. It's very easy to configure in the client center, or excuse me, in the admin console. We also released some improvements to the library card page for CRVS Summon customers. You can now configure the various elements that are displayed on the My Library card page. In the past, you had a set bit of functionality that included checked out items, what was the list of checked out things, fines and fees requests, reading history, messages, and personal details. Now you can decide if you want to show these or not. You can turn off various sections. You can also change the order in which they're displayed on this My Library card page. And again, this is for institutions that use Sierra and Summon in conjunction. Also, as part of the NERS voting process last year, you requested that we do a better job with refining the content type called web resources. There were a lot of online newspaper articles that when web resources was created years ago as a content type in CDI that these various articles fell into. It means that when you try to facet include or exclude information for newspaper articles, ones under web resources might show up. So we have adjusted that and identified a variety of packages and providers of information that are currently marked as web resources and are migrating that to being online newspaper articles. So, for example, all of these various resources previously had been marked as web resources. It'll now be enriched to show also that it's a newspaper article, so that if you do want to exclude newspaper items from your search, it'll be a little bit more thorough in that functionality. And again, this came to you as part of the NERS voting for 2022. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the November release, which also has a lot of NERS features in it as well. Thank you for your participation in that process to add things to the Summon roadmap. I'll talk a little bit more about that toward the end of the presentation as well. The November release, one thing I want to call out, and I mentioned it the other day on the listserv, previously we were going to have the preview environment launch in the middle of October. And then go live on November 2nd with the production. We were a bit ambitious in what we did, and we also wanted to do some better alignment between various connecting products that we have. So working with Alma for some of the functionality, for example, we requested that we delay this by, or we postpone the release by 2 weeks. It's going to give us time to get a little bit more done and to prep us well for our first February release, which I will, for 2023, which I'll give some hints around what that plans to be as well a little bit later in the presentation. But currently, the preview environment will go live on the first Wednesday of November. That's November 2nd. And the release itself will go live in production on November 16th. And what you'll be seeing as part of that release, the remaining items for the 2022 roadmap. That includes all the highlighted items on the right-hand side, more work on the SAML support for Sierra via Summon, improved display of coverage dates for e-journals and the Summon results set. Again, that's one that came to us as courtesy of the new enhancement request system, or the NERS voting system from Igloo and Aluna. The ability to ensure open access content has an open access link available in the record, and I'll show you a little bit about how we're going to do that. The addition of collection discovery for Summon over Alma, and both those last two are NERS pieces, and we're going to continue to improve the user interface overall. And that includes accessibility, and we're doing some work on the advanced search page, so I'll show you that as well. So let's start off with the advanced search. Of all the things we've refined in the Summon user interface in the last year, this is one of the remaining pieces that we had. We want to do more here and make it more user-friendly. We did a lot of testing and we got feedback from you, the librarians, those of you who helped out with that. Thank you so much for your input. And we discovered that a lot of end users feel a little overwhelmed by the advanced search page. And so we are offering the ability to have an overlay, basically right now where it says options and has a drop-down arrow, and you can change that to whatever label you'd like. But basically when you click it, you'll get an abbreviated version of the advanced search page, which gives you the most widely used features on that page. And that includes the search field and the ability to have multiple search fields and be able to join them using an and or. The ability to set publication date or restrict to a date range, and then the top facets like refine your search and content type and things like that. And the mock-up you see there on the right-hand side, it'll also carry over any functionality or any selections that you did in the main search results page. So anything that's done in the facet panel there on the left-hand side, those will be shown as selected at the bottom, and you can remove those if you'd like. You'll also still have access to the full advanced search page, so that you can go and access all the functionality there as well. So basically you'll have the ability to do the full range of search, but you'll also have a hopefully better presentation and grouping so that it makes it easier for end users to get the most out of that advanced search page. And here's an example of what it's going to look like on smaller screens as well. Again, you're going to have the ability to the search button at the bottom will be sticky, and when you scroll, you'll be able to search no matter how far down you go into all of your various facets and whatnot. And then on the right-hand side, you can see what the mobile version will look like. Rather than things being in a 3-column pattern on the left-hand side, they will be stacked so that it should be easy to use on a smaller screen. Another feature that came courtesy of NERS from last year's voting is the addition of collection discovery for Summon over Alma customers. It's a way for you to present your collections of titles. You can group them into categories and use a more visual presentation to make it easier to browse or discover things. This will be available for all Summon over Alma sites and will be part of that November release. We're also going to be working on SAML support for Sierra via Summon. The majority of the development work for that is done. Right now, we're in the process of testing. If you are a Sierra site that has SAML installed for Sierra currently, please let me know if you'd like to test this out. We'd love to have some more people helping us out there. But I'm happy to say that we do currently have some customers live and testing this. The great thing about this is even if you don't use Sierra, we have coded or put in the SAML support into Summon in a way that should support other authentication systems. We will have a feature available at the beginning of next year. I'll talk about that a little bit. That will in a little bit that will also use the SAML login. And so hopefully in 2023, with some additional testing partners for different SAML integrations, we'll be able to expand some of the functionality and availability we have of features like this to non-Sierra customers. Another feature that's going to come as part of the November release is the ability to ensure that there is an open access link for any identified open access content. Currently, in order for an open access link to show up in a result, you need to make sure that that collection is activated within your instance of Summon. So what that results in is that sometimes there'll be some collections that you haven't activated that are open access that do end up with a result in the result set that has an open access indicator in it, but there's no open access link to find in the link selection. With this functionality, what we'll do is we will take that open access link and associate it with the open access icon on the right. You can see there on the screen with the open padlock. That will become a link. You won't have to worry about activating or ensuring that rights are set appropriately for that open access content. Anytime that icon is there, you'll have a link that goes directly to the open access content itself. You will have the ability to turn this on or off globally, so if you don't like that implementation, you don't have to implement it, but it will be a quick and easy way for people to find the open access content they are looking for. So next, another NERSC feature is the ability to display coverage dates for e-journals and Summon results. We want to have more details around what that looks like. Here's a mock-up of what we'll have, like a small journal details link in the results. When you click on that, that'll take you to a larger page that will give you all of the various types of all of the various sources of coverage that you have and the coverage dates that you have there, if there are multiple. If there is not a beginning date set, or if the final date is set to present, it will appear as a blank at the beginning or present at the end. You will be able to edit that in translation so that if you wanted to say something else there, you certainly can. We're also continuing to add more and more providers to Quick Links. If you're not familiar with Quick Links, this is part of our data excellence program, which is making sure that the data is doing the most it can for you and your patrons. And this includes providing quicker access and fewer clicks to get to HTML or PDF pages of the full text, which is what the end user really wants. As I like to say, it's not really Summon they're looking for, it's that content at the end, and Quick Links is a way to get them to it as quickly as possible. There are now 25 providers supported. The new additions have been Alexander Street, American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, Brepel Publishers, JSTOR, Project Muse, Taylor and Francis, World Scientific Publishing, and we plan to continue this through next year. If you'd like to go see the details on who is included in that 25 or more information about Quick Links, you can go to the URL at the bottom of the screen. As Scott mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this will be available, so no need to do a screen grab or copy that URL. We'll make sure you have it available as part of the PDF afterwards. So those are some of the things you should expect in the November release, which is our final release for 2022. And actually, I should say 2023 roadmap. So now we're starting to look forward to what we do in 2023. And we are in the planning processes yet, so nothing has been decided or set. We will do a webinar at the beginning of 2023 to show you what is planned for that. But I am working with the development team, with the product working group and others to finalize what we're going to do. One thing I know that we do plan to do for 2023 is follow through on the implementation of LTI for Summon. So this year, as part of the NERSC process, we did the initial analysis and design and implementation. Our plan is to take that and now implement it early in 2023. And again, once we have determined what the roadmap is, we'll let you know better on the timing and whatnot. Another item that's planned, and it looks like it's going to be available in the February release, will be the ability to use SAML for saved searches. And this will initially be available only to Sierra and Summon customers, but this is the piece that I was talking about, which is that Once this is completed, we will validate it with CR first because we'll have the SAML in place for that. And we'll be looking to expand beyond it and look if we can integrate this with other SAML systems, other authentication systems. And so at that point, we'll be able to expand some of this functionality to beyond just CR users right now. It will allow for the storage of safe searches on Summon servers. It is GDPR compliant, and this will be in addition to the Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive logins that we have. In the past, we used those so you could store your file on a server that you controlled or that you chose, but we knew that you wanted a different option as well. So now you can do Microsoft, Google, or your own login with the flat file of the safe searches being stored in a GDPR compliant way in one of our cloud services. For next year, we also plan to continue with the data quality and rights and working on that. We are, as I mentioned before, we have a data excellence program that we're working on with focuses on things like enhanced performance, improved matching through the CDI rights processing, and ongoing improvements in the merged record. This overall data excellence program is really about addressing the intersection between content, technology, and users as part of a data-driven cross-company strategy. Clarivate and Ex Libris, before we became Clarivate, has always been about making sure that we have the best possible data. We know that one of the most significant things of our product offering is the Central Discovery Index for all that metadata that you and providers provide to us, and that we work together to make sure that it is being used as best it possibly can. That means that we have good capacity, efficiency, speed, and provisioning services, and high quality for all of these things. This means stronger services for you, higher user satisfaction for your patrons, and better outcomes overall. And of course, we'll continue to work on things like accessibility and improving our analytics. We are taking a look at how we're using OAS, what are the other analytics tools that we have within Clarivate as a whole, and how can we support third-party applications like Google Analytics for if you're using those at your institution. So we'll be taking a look at those around analytics. And with accessibility, we'll continue to review what we've done in the past to make sure that it's working as best as it possibly can, as well as ensure that the things that we're building for the future are as accessible as possible. Feeding into all of this is the idea exchange and the NERS voting process. If you're not familiar with those things, the idea exchange is open to anyone and everyone. You can go sign up for the idea exchange and you get a set number of votes. It's 25, I think, if I recall correctly. And you can also enter in ideas there. That's a bit of a free-for-all. Anybody can put whatever they'd like there. I always take a look at it on a regular basis to review for features that we might be able to include throughout the year, or for major things that we might do for the following year. And I also look at the votes there to see what is it that's important to you. So the idea exchange is a great way to get your ideas out there, to communicate with other community members, and to interact with each other, and to make sure that we're getting the information that you'd like us to have on how to improve Summon. In addition to that, we have the new enhancement request system on NERS voting from Igloo and Aluna. That has is a little bit more structured, and in particular, anything that we vote on for the 2023 NERS voting will be put on the roadmap and developed in 2023. So in other words, when the voting comes up, which will be in the next couple of months, whatever are the top ideas there, those will be part of the 2023 roadmap and will be delivered in that calendar year. So make sure you watch for that and participate and vote and let us know what's important to you. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Amy to talk a little bit about 360 and Untoda.
Thanks, Brent. I'd like to echo your encouragement to folks to enter the ideas in the idea exchange and vote for your NERS projects. One of the things that we have drawn on heavily this year is the ideas exchange and what folks are really asking for us to do. Next slide, please. The themes that we focused on this year have been primarily community requests and their NERS voting. And as I mentioned, we've looked at ideas exchange extensively and tried to understand what folks are requesting from us. We've also had a heavy reliance on infrastructure needs this year. And we, as always, we provide continuous support, whether that's for issues resolution or for refining or refactoring some of the things that have been in the system for a while. That's kind of an evergreen situation that we focus on. Next slide, please. So for our quarterly releases, we are 3/4 of the way through the year. We've done 3 so far. Our next is going to be November 2nd. So for the 360 and Intota services, our update date has not changed. It's going to be slightly different from Summon, but that's okay. We are kind of a well-oiled machine at this point, and the team is geared towards hitting the dates that we set out at the beginning of the year, and we didn't need an extension. So 360 and Intota will be released on November 2nd, and there will be no downtime expected. Next, please. Just to kind of review our progress to date in terms of community requests, especially a lot of things that we saw in the ideas exchange and from just kind of informal conversations that we've had. Some of our highlights are the ability to filter the eJournal portal autocomplete suggestions, and that filters those autocomplete suggestions to the things that are actually in your library holdings. So not the entire universe of the knowledge base, but just the things that you actually subscribe to. The NERS project that we focused on this year was to change the eJournal portal sort order to favor main titles over alternate titles. We spent a lot of time on this. It was a pretty big investment of our resources, and unfortunately it seems like only about 20 libraries have turned this on. I just checked that this week. So I want to encourage you to either look up this project in the release notes and in the Knowledge Center, or reach out to me personally if you need more information about it, because it was a really important project that we worked on. So if you're not familiar with it, just give me a shout. We also put in a ideas exchange project that shows the MARC record availability percentage at the database level. So within Client Center and Intota, you can see how many normalized titles there are within the database just at a glance, without having to go and kind of cherry pick and look at individual titles to see if there may or may not be a normalized MARC record behind that title. For 360 Link, we added the capability to bulk upload a database order list. So rather than working from within the actual admin console within that UI and kind of drag and drop or change the numbers of certain databases, you can download it to a spreadsheet compatible software program, reorder it, and then re-upload that list. And we've also, in our most recent release, in the Q3 release, we provided the ability to upload KBART formatted files to databases. Next, please. In terms of infrastructure, we've done an awful lot this year. In July, there was a major database management software migration. There was certainly some fallout from that project, but expected fallout. We knew things were changing. We were, kind of changing a lot of dials, and there was just a variety of things that we had to kind of refactor and reconcile afterwards. So thank you for your patience with all of that as we work through those issues. As you've been seeing on the list, I hope, we are doing, Ex Libris as a whole is doing a major migration from FTP support to MFT support. We always have ongoing tools maintenance, whether that's JavaScript or Tomcat or etc. And one thing I did not put on this slide, but that bears talking about, is initially we had planned in H1 to migrate Intota assessment to the Oracle Analytics server. That is still in the works. It just did not happen in the H1 timeframe. It's absolutely going to happen before the end of the year. I just need to figure out when to I need to work out with the development team when that is happening, and then let you know when it's happening. Next, please. These are just some highlights of, the ongoing support that we provide. As ever, there are monthly linker syntax changes in order to assure accurate linking. We have updates to our CKC articles. We do VPAD updates. We're always working on Sushi to try to reconcile some of those provider-specific idiosyncrasies. We are working to improve and speed up the CDI rights field, IEDL. All of these things are really, kind of in our continuous backlog. Next, please. In terms of the November release, next, please. As ever, it bears repeating that we are really driving towards something that's showing up in the ideas exchange in kind of a variety of requests, which is that folks want auto holding support for additional providers beyond eBook Central. We've had eBook Central auto holdings in place, for a number of years, since about 2014. But we need to extend that to additional providers. You made that loud and clear, and that's what we're driving towards. Next, please. So the first phase that we had was just being able to support KBART, because it wasn't possible in Client Center and in Toda up until the Q3 release of this year. So we added the ability to upload KBART formatted files to provider databases. And now with Q4, we are also providing the ability to upload KBART formatted files to LSH databases, or those libraries that you manage on your own that aren't managed under the auspices of the 360 KB. So in very much the same way that you can upload KBART formatted files to provider databases, you can do that now with your LSHs. And again, it's as simple as ticking this checkbox that says is KBART file. And then we go through the same process of validation, of trying to reconcile those titles to what we have available in our backend, and then showing any errors that we might encounter. Next, please. Yeah, thank you. So our next steps here for KBART are, since we can now upload KBART files to provider databases as well as LSHs, we will continue to work through any issues that you have provided to us, whether in terms of, a date format is preventing this from being uploaded. So, we know we need to make a change on our end. We also need to integrate all of these features into Toda. And then we need to really begin working on automation with providers. And unfortunately, although you're a wonderful community, you can't necessarily help us in this. This is a process between Ex Libris and providers. We need to get their API documentation. We need to establish infrastructure, test beds. We need to work with provider outreach teams in order to, get in contact with the right people. We have a targeted list of providers that we're going to be working with. We have good experience with them because in many cases, they're already working with them on the Alma and SFX sides. So this is where we will be heading in early 2023. Next, please. Another project that we fit into this current release is the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, we are migrating from an FTP to an MFT platform in order to exchange files. So folks who use 360 Mark updates, we're going to have a new space within the administration console under the user authentication tab that will allow you to enter your MFT credentials. This is going to be a username and an SSH key. Next, please. You will each be receiving more information on this depending on when your library is scheduled to migrate. And currently there are 3 migration groups set up. The first is going to be going November 1st. The second is scheduled for January 4th. And the next is temporarily scheduled for it. What it had been scheduled for March of next year, but I think that's going to slip a little bit, just because we want to make sure that we have sufficient support for our summon via Sierra clients. So look for that in the first half of next year. More information about when that exact date is going to be. But about 2 weeks before that, the dates listed here, the primary and secondary contacts as set up in Client Center and in Toda, and the email address with a most recent login to either Client Center and in Toda are going to get an email about this process, and it's going to be coming from support. So it's not going to be on the listserv. It won't be coming from Brent or me. But it will be coming from support, and will specifically say, okay, you've been identified as someone who's important in this process. If you're not the person, or if you want to designate someone else, chat with support, open a case with support, and let us know who that person is. And then about at the time of these dates, November 1st, January 1st, and then first half of next year, there will be very specific information about how you log in, get a username, get an SSH key. I put a link here that you will be able to access. It's an FAQ for Summon and 360 and Toda clients. This is continuously updated as we receive more questions from you and as we learn more about the process as well. Next, please. So some additional things to look for in the November 2nd release. A couple of things happened with our auto holdings process with EBC. First of all, the software migration caused a bit of an interruption in the July-August timeframe. So we dug in and figured out the cause behind that. But we also realized at that point that we were getting a couple of reports that said, you know what, not all of our titles are getting tracked, and they should be. And so we dug in a little more behind that and figured out that there was a difference between the identifiers that the eBook Central team has and those that we were holding in our database. So we needed to do some refactoring and reconciliation of that. Almost all libraries should absolutely be in sync right now, but there are a couple of outliers, and they will absolutely be cleared up as of the November 2nd release. We also have a new favicon for 360 Core. So if you're one of those people who has, I don't know, 1750 tabs open in a browser, 360 Core will be a little more identifiable with a new icon there. We've improved the title contains all words search in the eJournal portal for CJK titles. We have fixed the display of proxy URLs in consortium members for folks who are using in Toda, and we've done a variety of refinements for both testing sushi credentials as well as processing some of the provider and reports combinations, whether it's Credo, University of Michigan, TR, BR reports. We've done quite a bit of work on trying to resolve those issues. Next, please. And those are the things I wanted to share about the November 2nd release. And Brent's going to talk a little bit about some of the engagement we've got going on, and then we'll be open for questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Amy. As I mentioned before, of course, you've got the idea exchange and you've got NERS. Please participate in those. We've also got some really good webinars coming up. And when I say we, I mean us and the entire Summon community. We've got Be Cyber Smart, Approaches to Ensure Library Security, Privacy, and Reliability coming up here pretty quickly on Monday, October 24th at 2 o'clock Eastern. That's next week. And then we have the eLuna Learns sessions, which are put together by you, the eLuna members. There's one on acquisition on November 2nd. There's one on metadata on November 9th. There's one on discovery, November 16th. One on Alma data for November 30th. and all those go for about 3 hours. So it's a good sort of deep dive into those areas to learn and have a conversation and do as much as you can around that. We also have one around diversity, equity, and inclusion. That will be scheduled, and we'll set up registration for that coming soon. And the same thing around analytics. That will be scheduled, and we will send out registration for that. As I mentioned before, and as Amy mentioned as well, this PowerPoint will be available via PDF, and you'll be able to easily access the URLs, the blue links there on the screen to go and register for any of those. So please join us for those sessions. They should be informative and hopefully fun. I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for your time today, both attending our webinar and for all of the input and feedback that you give us on the product and the development of it. I particularly think back to the various preview environments we've done with the user interface changes recently and all of the feedback you've given there and how quickly we've been able to respond. It really makes the most out of these products being as connected to you, the end users and the customers. And please let us know what we can do to help out more.
As Brent said, thank you everyone for your time. Also, thank you for being our customers. I look forward to hearing your ideas either via the ideas exchange, through your voting, or reaching out directly to me. We always appreciate hearing from you, and thank you.